We're back with Track Talk, and we'll be doing a game of 1846. Many of these players should be familiar to the channel at this point. Camp von Blucher plays 1846 quite frequently. MJ Mill has been featured at least once or twice, and I think Matt Fedor has as well. I don't know if JR has or not, but I've seen that name around. Unfortunately, I still don't know a great way to go through the private draft for 1846. It just doesn't allow me to see what the players are taking in real time. So I'll do my best, but we will kind of move through the draft rather quickly to get to the meat of the game. Count von Blucher is going to lead us off, and he has options: tunnel blasting, mail contract, Chicago and Western, Lakeshore Line, and Big Four. Chicago and Western, Lakeshore are both pretty good. Mail contract usually waits till the end, and Big Four and tunnel blasting are a little more situational in my mind. Matt Fedor, he has Michigan Southern, Boomtown, Ohio, and Indiana. So probably Michigan Southern would be the private I'd be most excited about. But the other ones, Boomtown, I think has some utility if you're trying to run in the South, maybe with the B&O or the C&O. Otherwise, not the most exciting privates. Lakeshore Line is still available, so we know Count didn't take that one. Big Four also still available. Tunnel Blasting available. So maybe Count took the Chicago Western, the Teleport private. We'll have to see. Here, I would take probably Lakeshore Line of these options, and we'll see what MJ takes. JR, he has the Michigan Southern, so that one still hasn't been picked, and Tunnel Blasting is still available. So we may see that the Chicago and Western has been taken along with the Lakeshore Line. Hard to predict. Looks like he did take the Chicago Western. Lakeshore Line is still available. He may look to pick that up. And then the Michigan Southern is also still available. That's a little bit interesting. It is an expensive private, of course, but it's pretty good. I guess it kind of synergizes best with the GT, so maybe people aren't eager to start that company. But I'm a little bit surprised to see it going through that first round. Matt Fedor, he took the Boomtown and now has the Lakeshore Line, Ohio, and Indiana left. Doesn't look like players are picking up passes, so they are eager to take up some of these privates at least. MJ Mill, he took Big Four last time, and now we'll have the Ohio and Indiana or tunnel blasting to choose from. JR, he passed, and he's going to run the risk of maybe being stuck with mail if he doesn't take tunnel blasting here. So I'll be curious to see if he passes again. The Count von Blucher does snap up the Michigan Southern in the last one and has Chicago and Western as previously noted. Mail is still available, and there are passes. So I think if I were him, I would be passing. Probably not eager to pick up tunnel blasting. Matt Fedor, he has Boomtown and Lakeshore Line. These two privates are on opposite sides of the map, so I'll be curious to see which company he's looking to pick. He could take the last pass here, and I think that if I were him, I'd be eager to do that. Looks like he did. MJ Mill has Big Four in Ohio and Indiana. Well, I guess he's going to be obligated to take tunnel blasting probably, and he does. So it looks like mail contract now. JR, does he pass here or does he just take it? I think he passes and then hopes that the other players pass and he gets it for pretty cheap. That would be pretty nice for him. But he may end up with no privates if he's not careful. Instead, just buys it for face. So I don't think that's ideal. Pretty expensive, not the best private. And there was a chance, I suppose, that if he had passed, he could have gotten it for a little bit cheaper. But probably the other players wouldn't have allowed that. So I don't know. Just I guess his earlier actions in the draft probably set him up for that. He does have priority. We'll have first choice of companies, and his private doesn't really dictate which company he starts. I don't know that privates ever dictate necessarily, but he has plenty of good options here. Does he just take the IC for the extra cash? He will take the NYC. He pars it at 80. MJ Mill, he has Big Four, Ohio and Indiana, and tunnel blasting. He spent $200 in the draft, which is a fair amount. So with his Big Four in Ohio and Indiana, is he looking to start the B&O or the C&O maybe? He takes the IC. Okay. Well, he spent a lot of money, so as noted, he at least gets a little bit more in his treasury by starting the IC. Always a good company. Matt Fedor, he is Boomtown and Lakeshore Line. As we said before, these privates don't line up too well with one another. So we'll see. He's going to take the B&O. Count von Blucher also spent $200, it looks like, and he is the Michigan Southern. Does he start the GT here? He does. So it looks like everyone has, well, not everyone actually. JR and Mad Fedor still have shares that they can buy, and they will be operating early in the first round of this set of operating rounds. So hopefully able to get a head start on the other players. JR in particular may be looking to buy up a bunch of two trains and then run for very high revenue on the east side of the map into Cleveland. He doesn't have any privates that are going to help him get across the map, so he may be stuck in the east for a while. Probably just going to continue to capitalize his own company would be my guess. He does. Mad Fedor taking the same approach. I wonder if these players are going to look to cross invest at all. You have to be a little bit careful about depleting your treasury with a low par like this. Wouldn't be unreasonable to buy one of the other players' shares, but if you do that, you may open up the door to them buying your share. So maybe basically the same result. JR is just, oh, I see. The game skipped. So they both end up with 40% of their companies. We'll pass into the next stock round. Should be Count von Blucher with priority. Operation of the minor companies, Michigan Southern. He is the president of the GT, so likely going to be laying friendly track and heading towards Chicago. I believe he also has the Chicago and Western, so he doesn't need to worry about getting there very early. Big Four now. This is owned by the IC player, so probably just going to be laying friendly track. The B&O may also be able to take advantage of this Big Four start, though. And we'll see if the Big Four player wants to be cooperative or if he's looking to somehow box the B&O out. I find that boxing people out or laying try to track in 1846 is pretty hard. The track is, it really tends to open up and it's just hard to really lock people down when they have two track lays per operation. Big Four heading down to Centralia, so probably just going to be laying track and allowing the IC to lay right up into Indianapolis right away. First operation of a major company, NYC, expect him to be laying towards Cleveland. There's no competition for that track. And we'll see, he actually buys in his private. We'll see how many two trains he's able to buy here. He is issuing and looks like he's telegraphing buying 3. B&O's first operation. He probably will teleport to Cincinnati and look to link up with Indianapolis. I don't think he wants to or needs to lay the expensive track out of Wheeling. He issues shares and looks like he is going to be heading to Cincinnati. He's not going to be able to get into Indianapolis right away, but we'll be able to link up there in the next set of operating rounds. Or in the next operating round, I should say. And he also has the option of buying 3 two trains. He could run all 3 of them, but this is going to make it very easy for the other players to buy into green. They do have the cash. The IC in particular has no trouble with that. But missing out on the 2 trains in 46 is, I think, a little bit problematic. They tend to run pretty well. So he's going to leave 1, 2 available for the IC to pick up. And he also has actually, he does not have a minor company, so he's not going to be getting a 2 train for the minor companies, but MJ Mill and Count von Blucher will, which is quite nice for them because they are otherwise going to be missing out. IC, expect him to be laying into Centralia and then Terre Haute. Instead, he's heading to St. Louis. Okay. Well, I assume he will be heading there eventually into Terre Haute. Maybe just going to take the token to get there. And he should be buying green trade. Yes, he does. And he did not buy in the minor company, so he will not be running that 2 train with the IC, but instead running it with the Big Four next set. Operation of the GT. He is issuing shares and looks like he's heading to Toledo. So I'm a little bit uncertain why he laid a gentle curve here instead of a tight. This is going to cost him an extra track to get into Toledo. Toledo has plenty of curved cities, so he could have gotten there and still ran down to Cleveland if that's his goal. He would have needed a straight city, and there's 3 available. So I don't know if he was worried about being blocked. I don't think he should have been worried. So I'm not entirely sure where he's going with this, but maybe he's just looking towards the future and seeing that a tight curve here is going to block players coming from the east and the south. Not entirely sure. Regardless, gets into Toledo. Does he leave a token here? Not right now. And he buys a green train, can actually buy two of them, and he does. It's going to leave him pretty cash tight, but he will be able to run pretty well in the next operating set. The operation of the minor company, he is going to head into Cleveland, it looks like. Okay, that's good for the GT. Also helps to New York, obviously. Big Four, heading towards, well, just going to make it a little bit easier for the B&O to get into Indianapolis and eventually down into Chicago. First player-owned company, and he is taking the token and his other privates, and then upgrading Dayton and also hoping to get into Cleveland, it looks like. So that's an interesting strategy. Um, it may lead to the NYC being tokened out of Cleveland, which is kind of a disaster. That's not going to open up for a long time. We'll see if that actually comes to pass. IC is going to be running pretty well, and he should probably at least half pay here. Let's see. He full pays. I guess he has a very healthy treasury, so going to be getting money that way. Very reasonable. And he actually is able to double jump. GT almost certainly going to be leaving a token in Cleveland, and then can also reserve his last token with his private for Chicago. Will have a very nice run for the rest of the game as a result. Shouldn't be able to break that run up with tokens. Just too many ways to bypass. He is buying in the Michigan Southern, gets a token on Detroit as a result. Probably going to be leaving one in Cleveland. And actually, so my mistake, he doesn't have the cashed token. So he unfortunately is not going to be able to block the New York player out. Does New York have money for a token? He does. So he needs to snap that token down right away, or else he's in pretty deep trouble, I think. I wonder, so if the GT, I'm just going to backtrack for a second. If the GT did not buy the Michigan Southern, um, he still would not have had the cash for a token. So a little bit unfortunate for him. He couldn't have issued any more, but maybe buying that second 3-5 train was, in hindsight, a mistake. It's hard to predict that Cleveland would have been tokened by the IC, though, so I can't really fault him for that. Regardless, buys in his privates, upgrades Toledo, and is going to be running his 2-3-5 trains. Only running for 180. Doesn't have the best tokens right now to run both of these trains because he can't run into the offboard through Port Huron just yet. But he's going to get some more cash into his company as a result of this payout, so we'll be running better next operating round. He full pays, and he is able to double jump. Buys in his private with the new cash, and he does take that token. So he's probably still hoping to get a token in Cleveland, but he doesn't have the cash for it. So not going to be happening unless somebody buys shares for him in the next stock round, and could be just tokened out by New York right now. New York is getting a second run into Cleveland. Will be running his 3 trains. And where does he leave his token? If he tokens in Cleveland, can get 3 runs out of Cleveland, which is going to be really, really good for him. He's passing a token. I think that's a mistake. He is in very deep danger if he gets tokened out of Cleveland, I think. He has no private to help him out, and he's running 3-2 trains, which may just all rust on him if he's not careful. He's paying out very well for now, though, and he is owning 40% of this company, so he's going to have a lot of money going into the next stock round. He buys a 4. That's nice. At least he's not going to be falling back trainless. Where are we in terms of permanent trains? 1 train between us and permanent trains. So could be seeing that pretty fast. B&O does have money for the last non-permanent train if he wants to take it. And he's going to upgrade Dayton. Does he token New York out? He is instead going to put a token on Dayton. A little bit surprised by that. If he had tokened Cleveland, that Dayton city should not be under fire immediately. So a little bit surprised he decides to token there rather than in Cleveland. Running just 2 trains. He's going to take advantage of his private, get a little bit extra money in Cincinnati, and he's running for 200, which is going to be enough for a double jump. He looks like he also full paid, and he buys that last non-permanent train. So we are sitting on the cusp of the permanent trains, and plenty of these companies should be able to scrounge up cash to buy them. It just really depends on how the shares get bought right now. Count von Butcher leading us off. May just look to buy his own market shares. GT has pretty good trains for right now. I think the only company I would be a little bit leery about buying is the New York, as it's still on the chopping block in terms of tokens and has 3 trains that could be obsolete before they run. He's going to buy his own market share. NYC, I think, again, I'd like to see him invest in other players' companies. His company is looking a little bit dangerous. He's going to buy an IC, and he buys it from the Treasury. That is probably not the right move. You're giving this company money, it's operating before you and likely to bring out a permanent train if it's able to clear any of these market shares. We'll see what how that plays out. Unless he's just going to trash shares, but there's already 2 shares in the market, so I don't know that you need to buy a treasury share to do that. MJ Mill clearing his market. Matt Fedor also going to be buying the IC from the Treasury, so this company is very close to permanent train money now, and should be able to get there without even withholding at this point. So that spells bad news for the NYC and basically everyone else in the game that's operating behind the IC. We'll see if that's allowed to occur. Count is passing, doesn't have money for shares. That's bad news. He only has 3 shares. He's going to be falling quite far behind in share density, it looks like. 2 shares already behind the other 2 players. JR is passing. MJ Mill has 1 share left to buy, and he will buy, it looks like, another IC. Market has been cleared. One of the other players can sell, of course, to make it fall back. We'll see if they're motivated to do that. But again, IC should be able to bring out a permanent train. Matt Fedor probably going to be passing here. He does. And does JR sell an IC? He's passing as well. So it looks like we're just going to pass into the stock round. This is really bad for the NYC, I think. We'll see what IC wants to do here. Maybe looking to head up to Chicago now. Instead, just going to be linking up with St. Louis and running his 3 trains. Has pretty good runs. Did he actually issue? He also issued. So he's going to have plenty of money for a permanent train. He full pays, and he's going to pick up probably the more expensive 5 because he issued for it. Okay, so for now he just picks up a 4-6. Does he have a east-west run with a 4-6? He should not, I don't think. This is 7 stops. Actually, more than 7. It is... No, it's exactly, yeah, it's 7. So he can't get an east-west run just yet, but if he finds a way to bypass one of these cities, perhaps Terre Haute, he will quickly be able to have an east-west run. Bad news for all the other players. Their 2 trains are going to be obsolete earlier than the ICs. GT, where does he look to head? Still doesn't have token money, unfortunately. Is he just going to work to link up with Chicago? Oh, so he was able to issue. So he will be able to token. I'd love to see that token in Cleveland, which it now occurs. So New York has really missed an opportunity, tokened out at Cleveland and Dayton, which is disastrous. He is looking to head towards Chicago as predicted, and he's going to run all 3 of his trains. Last run for that 2 trains, so we'll be running a little bit worse in the next operating round. He full pays and is halfway towards a permanent train. He does double jump again. New York, very bad situation with this company. Where is he looking to head? He is upgrading Cleveland, so I guess I forgot that it opened up in brown, but still not ideal. He's still at risk of being tokened out because he doesn't have token money. Could issue 1 share and would get token money that way. Actually, would not. He would be a few bucks short, so he's still in trouble. He's going to be running 4 trains, but unfortunately doesn't have the best track because he only has one token to run them all from. But he will be running pretty well, at least this operating round, but all these trains are rusting, so going to be in a rough spot. He half pays, doesn't have permanent train money, and is going to be, as I keep commenting, in trouble. B&O, 2 trains are going to be rusting. Does he snap up the last Cleveland token? He's going to be, looks like paying for 370, full paying, and he does not token. Still has the option of doing that next operating round. And the NYC also has money for a token now, so curious to see who gets that. The IC, final run of the 2 trains in the game, but as commented, we'll be getting an extra run of them, so very good news for him. Upgrading Indianapolis, maybe looking to bypass Terre Haute in the next set of operating rounds. Just laying the one track, running 4 trains, and it's going to have a pretty monstrous run of 520. Unable to triple jump because he's in the limited part of the market, but will be at least double jumping. He full pays, and will just be gradually working his way towards his second permanent train. I expect he's going to have to do some half pays in the near future to really get the money for that. It may have made sense for him to half pay there. He still would have he still would have double jumped, I think. Half of 570 or half of 520 is yeah, it should be enough to triple jump or double jump, I think. 137 times 2. Maybe he's just short actually. Count von Blucher running the GT, 2 non-permanent trains. He is heading towards Chicago, it looks like. Issues another share. And actually doesn't complete the link to Chicago. Maybe setting up for the Mickey Mouse ears, though, to block the token and just allow 3 trains to get into Chicago. Running 2 trains, and he half pays 310. He only single jumps and is still in the restricted zone of the market. JR really need to secure that token in Cleveland, I think. And he is in no rush to do so, just running a single train. And if he withholds or half pays, actually he has to withhold to afford a permanent train here. The half pay is not going to be quite enough. But if he issues, then he will be able to half pay. So he does that, and does he pick up a 5 or a 4-6 here? He picks up a 4-6, okay. And he has not left himself enough money for a token. I'm surprised that this Cleveland token has stayed available so long. B&O is upgrading Cincinnati, running just a single train, and probably also looking to bypass Terre Haute and Indianapolis. He's going to run for 200, and does he half pay here? He full pays, gets a double jump, but is still restricted in the market. So that's the end of that operating round. Looking at the game state for a second, the market is pretty healthy, and shares are tied for Mad Fedor and JRK. Mad Fedor is in second place by just a few dollars. MJ Mill has managed to stay in contention with the extra run of his 2 trains, but he is lagging behind in a share. And those 2 players also have the most cash going into this stock round, so may be able to afford an extra share compared to the other players. This looks kind of bad for Count von Blucher, I would say. He has 3 trains, so will be running better in the next operating set, but he's developing quite a share deficit, and he's already trailing in cash too. The shares are getting pretty expensive, so he's not going to be able to overtake the other players, I don't think. Mad Fedor, where does he buy now? The GT looks pretty attractive, running 3 trains, and probably going to be running them for a while. I don't think we'll be seeing the expensive permanent trains come out in the first operating round. That is, unless somebody floats a new company. Does it make sense to float a new company here? C&O would have a little bit of a hard time potentially. Could get into Cincinnati and then end St. Louis, but it's tokened out in Dayton for the foreseeable future. And then the Erie is also available. Erie, I worry about starting the Erie here. Unless you're able to guarantee you're going to secure a token in Cleveland, probably not the best move. I think if I was Matt Fedor, I'd be buying paying shares. He looks like he's going to be floating though. So he sells the IC and one share in the BNO, and probably will be starting the CNO, would be my guess. He does start the Erie. So Erie is going to be running at 150. If the IC falls back, could operate before him, and he's basically guaranteed to be operating before the NYC. So I guess he's confident that he can get a token in Cleveland. All right, not unreasonable. Count von Butcher, he is investing in his own GT, trying to clear the market. He's not going to have the cash to do it on his own, and I don't imagine the other players are going to be helping. JR is buying a treasury share of the GT. MJ Mill buying his own IC, and he buys it from the market. Matt Fedor probably just going to continue to capitalize the Erie. Count von Butcher has to pass, so as commented, he's going to be falling behind in share density. JR, one more share for him, and he will pick up a GT, also buying it from the market. MJ Mill still has enough cash for 2 shares, it looks like. Actually, he's $1 short of 2 shares of the NYC, so only going to be able to pick up 1 share here. And I probably would be hesitant to buy the NYC. Looking at the operating order, I'm worried that he's going to be tokened out. I've been harping on this and saying it for several operating rounds, but I think it's finally going to happen, guys. So maybe buy the B&O or the GT. Yeah, maybe the GT. He does. He buys it from the Treasury, so GT is going to be falling back, it looks like. Matt Fedor probably buying in 1 more share of the Erie and has a pretty healthy Treasury as a result. Can definitely afford the first permanent train. I think even with issuing 4 shares, though, he's not going to be able to buy the cheap, the cheaper final permanents to obsolete the other players' trains. Looks like everybody's passing. This leaves Count with priority. And in terms of operating order, Erie is operating first, so he will be able to get into Cleveland. He issues all of his shares, and he secures that token. So the Z tiles do not open up in gray any further than 3 holes. So the New York, in my mind, is a dead letter. He'll have to lay an upgrade on E19 and then lay the terrain cost for this, and then hope that there's still an upgrade available to bypass Cleveland. But I don't think that's very reasonable to expect that to be allowed to occur from the other players. So does Erie pick up 2 permanent trains here? He could have, well, he can't afford to. I was going to say if there were 2 of the cheaper permanent trains available, he would do that, but he's going to be pretty close to affording a more expensive train after his first pickup. Has pretty good track as a result of the Cleveland token, and may look to actually link up with Chicago if the IC doesn't beat him there. He buys the 4-6, and now we see the IC's operation probably needs to look to getting a token in Chicago. Could look to get into the south of Chicago. I guess he has plenty of options. Would like to see him lay this track here and then upgrade to the diverging short or gentle curves and block this token and then token here. We'll see if he wants to play aggressively. Looks like he's going to focus on bypassing Terre Haute and getting a east-west run with his 4-6 though. So he's going to be running for 440, and if he full withheld, he could get a permanent train here, but he may want to issue instead for that, and then just half pay. We'll see. He just full pays, no rush to pick up a permanent train, just going to let his non-permanent train pay out until someone rusts it for him. Count von Butcher running 3 trains. Does he complete his link up with Chicago here? Looks like he does. And unfortunately, not going to be able to upgrade Chicago in the same. Well, actually, he can. So maybe that's what he'll do. just upgrading Detroit for now. And he's going to token in Toledo to make sure his run is not cut. I don't know if that was necessary. I wonder if he could have just left that open and hoped to build track around Toledo. You could upgrade this to a 23 or 24. What is the track that I'm looking at? It looks like a 45. What's the 23? Okay. Well, anyway, a 45 would go there, and that would allow him to bypass Toledo from Cleveland. So didn't necessarily need to token that, but it is a safe play to do it. He's going to run for 550, and does he full pay here? He does. So nobody is eager to really bring out the last rank of permanent trains. They're happy to sit on their non-permanent trains and just stall for a little bit. NYC, oh, he's in a rough spot. So he has taken the strategy to run around Cleveland, and we'll see if the other players allow it. He actually doesn't have the cash right now to even lay this tile. He will get that with his treasury paying into the company, but really rough situation. Entirely preventable, too. How did he have the money to do that? Isn't it $20 and then the $40 terrain cost? Hmm. I must be misunderstanding the rules. So he was able to afford it. I guess you don't pay the $20 when you pay a terrain cost. I didn't know that. He's going to not be able to bypass Cleveland just yet and still has the potential of being blocked by another player who's not feeling um, solicitous. Paying for 350 and he half pays that. So still not quite enough money for a permanent train and has a long way to go as a result of the expensive trains being available. B&O running just one train, going to be a little bit of an underwhelming run. Does he complete his link up with St. Louis? And looks like he's going to be working towards Wheeling. A little bit unclear to me what exactly this track is intended to achieve. Um, yeah, we'll have to see how that works out. Notably, not blocking the NYC player. One thing I'll say is that, generally in 18xx, you want to be not cooperating with your opponents, but JRR has fallen so far behind at this point that I think that spending track points to block him may not be the best use of um, your track points. He's technically in second place, but I think his long-term potential is just really kind of abysmal. He actually full withholds. Um, so I guess he's hoping to get a permanent train. Well, he needs a permanent train. He actually doesn't have one, so that's why he's withholding. He's the sole investor in this company. That really is painful. Ick, on the other hand, running two trains, has much better track, and he is upgrading Dayton. So again, not blocking the NYC. He's going to run for 450, has a permanent train, and looks like he full pays. So that's great news for MJ Mill. He controls 70% of the revenue. GT running three trains. He's running pretty well. Does he upgrade Chicago here? He does. And he's actually going to have enough money to redeem a share. So he's in no rush to bring out the last rank of permanent trains. He's going to be running for 630. Wow. And he full pays. Is that enough for a triple jump? No. So it looks like he was in the restricted area of the markets, though, unfortunately, and unable to triple jump. But if he continues to do that, he'll get some triple jumps for sure. He may be just anticipating that he has priority, so he can full pay and then start the C&O, get into Cincinnati, and have some decent runs on that company and rust the other players' trains by doing that. Erie has a pretty healthy treasury. With a half pay, may be able to get a second permanent train. Let's see. He is going to be upgrading the track laid by the GT earlier, and unfortunately, he's not going to be able to get into Chicago this operating round because he can only upgrade once. He also looks to be upgrading past Dayton, so maybe this is why the B&O player laid this track, because he realized that this Erie, his other company, was going to be tokened out of Dayton, so he was just setting that company up. That makes more sense. I didn't see that initially. Toledo is now tokened out. That hurts the ick. Also potentially hurts the New York a little bit, but the New York has bigger problems than Toledo, I think. Running for 210. Not going to be enough, especially with his track lays and token lays, for a permanent train this operating round. He's actually redeeming a bunch of shares as well, so he's just going to have a healthy treasury. NYC does have two trains, can run them both, and has been allowed by the other players to bypass Cleveland. But he's going to have to bypass other cities too to really have any potential in this game. He's redeeming his own shares, and he full pays 350. B&O running just one train. He may look to complete the track for Erie here, and he opens up Cincinnati as well. Interesting that we're not seeing any urgency from these players into getting to Chicago. You would imagine that both the IC and the B&O are looking at this Chicago token here. The Erie is probably going to snap up the North Chicago, so I'm surprised that nobody's making any moves towards there. He runs for 220, and he's able to redeem some shares and then probably pays. Yeah. So he had to full withhold once. That's really painful for him. So he's going to have to pay here to have any money in the stock round, it looks like. Taking a look at the game state, MJ Mill leading. He has that IC, which has been running pretty well. Count von Blucher was able to make some ground with the very high payouts on the GT, but still trailing in shares. And unfortunately, I think that's really going to neuter his ability to come back in this game. Even though he has a lot of cash, he's not that much. He doesn't have that much cash relative to the other players, and he's 2-3 shares behind them. Mad Fedor is trailing. This is because the Erie floated in the last round. He is share leader and actually last place in net worth, but I do think that he has long-term potential in the game if he's able to buy the right shares in this stock round and take advantage of his good routes and good long-term potential. MJ Mill leading. He is probably the favorite to win right now, and I don't just say that because of his net worth lead. The IK is a very strong company, and he has been playing pretty well. Count von Blucher, does he float the CNO? He's going to buy his paying share from the GT. JR is also jumping on the GT. This company may be floating up as a result, and looks like it will be unless somebody sells. Mad Fedor, not a whole lot of cash. These shares are getting very expensive. May look to buy his B&O shares, but that company only has one train. It's not permanent and has not been paying very well. So that's kind of a bitter pill to swallow. If he were to buy a share, he actually doesn't have quite enough cash to buy two shares. So he's looking at just one share in this stock round. That's going to hurt a lot. He buys the IC. Count von Blucher. He is also buying the IC. And JR is joining that as well. One share left, which MJ Mill snaps up. So that's great news for him. He is the majority investor in the IC and then a minority investor in the GT, the two companies with the best revenues, best long-term potential for now. I guess this is the danger of floating a second company. You fall behind in revenue for that one operating round, and the next stock round, you're not able to buy as many shares as everybody else. So it just kind of compounds the issues that you've created. I don't think it was the wrong move to float a company there, but you have to be aware of the potential downsides. Count von Blucher, he's buying an NYC. So I don't know. I'm a little bit biased, I guess. I tend to think that JR has not been playing great, so I don't know that I would be buying that share in particular. He's going to be running a little bit better than the Erie or the B&O, but I worry about the long-term potential. Looks like the other players are happy to jump in with him, though, and not enough cash for the NYC to sell out. It's actually going to be falling back because nobody cleared the market. Everybody else just MJ Mill buying one more share, buying into the B&O, and everybody else passing, so Mad Fedor will have priority. The CNO, I think, is still a viable start. He's been given priority, and he started one company before. Does he start a third company? That's probably a good way to lose the game. IC, he is upgrading Indianapolis and still running his east-west run, it looks like. He has been token out of Toledo, which hurts him a little bit, but still should be running pretty well. 450, and he half pays. That is going to give him enough money for the last rank of permanent trains, and unfortunately not able to double jump with that, but still moves forward. And he isn't again in a situation to rust the other players' trains. So that's really good news for him. The little things like that, I mean, it's not a little thing, that's actually a huge thing. But that type of thing really is, I think, how you get ahead in 18xx and probably is the reason why he's ahead of all the other players in net worth. GT running two trains that are now obsolete. Upgrade Chicago, going to improve his run a little bit. And he is running for 680, probably full pays here. He almost has permanent train money. Does he have? He's like $3. He's 43 bucks short. I think you just pay out here. He half pays, not able to double jump, and he's going to be buying the more expensive permanent train, I guess. He does. Does he have two permanent train runs? Two east-west runs? He has a short one for sure up north, and if he's able to bypass Dayton, could get a run from Buffalo into St. Louis. Is that going to be allowed to occur? He has no tokens to defend that. I don't think that that's a long-term strategy for him. There's a lot of tokens available to prevent that. Erie looks like bypassing Terre Haute and needs to drop a token somewhere to make sure that his long-term runs are secured. Going to pass for now. I'm surprised that he didn't head into Chicago and drop a token there. He would have had an east-west run with a 4-6 and would have secured his long-term runs. A 4-6 is enough to run from Buffalo, isn't it? Yes. So surprised that he's working down south. Runs for 300 and pays it out. Going to take him a while to get a second permanent train that way. New York running an obsolete train. Where is he looking to head? So this is what I'm talking about. Even with all these track lays that he's being allowed to take, he's getting nowhere fast because all the tokens in Dayton and Cleveland or just in Toledo even are just a really hard barrier to break through. He's redeeming additional shares and running for 350. Full pays, but he's going to be running a lot worse than this after that second train is rusted. Matt Fedor running the B&O with an obsolete train. Can issue shares to get closer to a permanent train, but is in kind of a rough spot. Looks like he's continuing to help the Erie potentially, and this also blocks the New York from getting anywhere west. So that seals the deal for New York, I think. He has to full withhold again, I think. So why redeem a share if you're going to withhold there? I'm not sure about that. Now he's out of pocket and buys a train from the Erie. So going to be falling back with the Erie, but has managed to consolidate his funds. So probably is not going to be bankrupt. Well, definitely will not be bankrupt. That would be fun to see in 46. The IC running his non-permanent train for the last time, but does have two permanent trains, so is going to be a very lucrative company for the rest of the game. He is tokening in Erie. Am I reading that right? D20. Where's Erie? Oh, I see. So cuts the run of the Erie player, which is bad news, but this should be upgradable to get him back into the east off boards. Is there a tile available for him? Yes, and there's two of them, so he should be able to snap that up. Not the end of the world. And he's running for 720. Should be just full paying for the rest of the game, I think. He has two permanent trains. So I think MJ Mill has basically secured the win here. The bank's not going to break, but he's going to have a ton of cash. He's tied for share lead. He has the most valuable company. I don't see how the other players are going to be able to upset this. He has good tokens. They're not going to be able to cut his runs. GT running two permanent trains, but doesn't have two east-west runs, I don't believe. Upgrading Toledo and running for 610, which is pretty good, but again, only netting 30% of that revenue compared to the leader, MJ Mill. Not going to be enough to get him back in the game. Erie, going to be forced to out of pocket a permanent train here. He is laying the track that we alluded to, so not blocked by the token. And he issues shares, does have permanent train money here. and will pick up he actually buys the cheaper 6 train, so maybe looking to save money for a token in the future. Not entirely sure why he wouldn't decide to pick a 7-8 when he has the cash. Also, still going to point out that there's only one token in Chicago in operating round 4. Pretty unusual. New York has really nowhere to go, running a single permanent train for 190, and he's issuing shares. Not going to be, oh, so with a full withhold is able to afford a second permanent train, but he doesn't have the track to run it. So really, what's the point? This is why I'm questioning the decision to invest in this company. He's just not playing in a way that makes that worthwhile. B&O running a single permanent train, upgrade Cincinnati, and it's running for only 250. Not going to be enough to bring him into the game. Stock round, this is probably the last stock round, would be my guess. We have some pretty high runs in 2 companies, and there's no reason that will change. C&O, is anybody looking to float this? Would have a run, would have an east-west run, and pretty easy to secure it. It's not going to be the highest revenue run, and you're not rusting any trains by doing it. So it probably doesn't make sense to buy those shares because they're not going to run for one of the operating rounds, and 2, the run is not going to be higher than other shares that are available. Mad Fedor buying a NYC of all companies. It does have 2 permanent trains, but again, doesn't have any real potential to run these trains well. So even a company with 1 permanent train can be competing with it. Count von Butcher does float the C&O. As noted, I think that's a mistake. Not going to be able to get him back in the game, but does open up shares for other players to buy. So that's another point against starting the C&O. You've lost tempo in the stock round, allowed the other player to buy paying shares, and now when you turn around, you're not going to be able to buy them. JRK buying his own NYC. MJ Mill, ton of cash, going to hit cert limit almost certainly. Where does he look to spend? Looks like he's looking towards the NYC. Mad Fedor, last share for him. He's going to pick up in Erie. Count von Butcher probably continuing to capitalize the C&O. Going to need to do that in order for it to afford a train. JR buying in Erie. MJ Mill also forced to pick up in Erie. Mad Fedor going to put a share of the IC in the market. That is pretty incredible. He can, I think, parlay that for 2 paying shares, but the IC is going to be running very well, and its stock appreciation is going to be astronomical compared to these other shares. So I don't know. I understand why you'd look to buy 2 shares instead of 1, but this is going to help the rich players who can afford that share no problem. MJ Mill, unfortunately for him, is share locked, so maybe nobody buys that share. We'll see. Buying in Erie. Count von Butcher continuing to float the C&O now out of cash. JR, does he pick up that IC? He's going to buy a B&O and does not have the money for the IC share. So the IC may fall back. Not the end of the world for MJ Mill, though. If he falls back, it just makes it easier for him to double jump. He is going to buy his last share, and actually he's buying an Erie. Mad Fedor, 1 more share as advertised, and is going to be forced probably to pick up a B&O share. He is maxed on Erie, and I don't know that he wants to buy the C&O, so he does. Count von Butcher out of cash. JR. So Count is actually selling at NYC, which will also be falling back. And does he pick up a B&O here? Or does he pick up the last Erie? He's going to buy 1 more share in the C&O. Okay. JR. He's passing. He's cert locked. MJ is also cert locked. And Mad Fedor is out of cash, so probably everybody passes here. This leaves JR with priority, and IC is up in terms of operation. Does he still have 2 east-west runs? He does not. The Toledo token hurts him. Should be able to bypass Toledo. We'll see if he's able to pull that off. He's just going to pass lane track, doesn't have much cash. Would have to withhold to get cash for track, and he can still double jump here. But this will be his last double jump without a change in the game state. So he full pays, and the GT now looks to be heading south, probably hoping to get a second east-west run. But with a token in Dayton, it's going to be hard for him to get there. running his 2 trains for 620, and he full pays. Running his newly started company. This track also helps open up the map for the C&O. Maybe the C&O is looking to get a token in Chicago. Seems unlikely, but we'll see if he's able to pull that off. Links up with Cincinnati as expected, and now has access through Indianapolis to the north of the map. So could token in Indianapolis and then hope to issue shares and get a token in Chicago in the next operating round. Has plenty of cash now and will be picking up a permanent train. Picks up the expensive permanent train. So, I mean, we'll see if this gambit pays off for Count von Blucher. It opens up some additional shares for him to buy, but the fact that he falls back with no revenue on 5 shares in this operating round is probably enough to make this move not worth it. It does probably extend the game, though, by buying another permanent train. Erie, he finally gets into Chicago. Probably is going to be dropping a token here. He does, and he has left the opportunity for a token from the B&O with an upgrade of this track. Does the B&O have a token and the ability to drop it? It does. So he can secure east-west runs through Chicago for both of his companies. He's running for 350 and he redeems a share and full pays. NYC, he's upgrading Columbus. So could look to get south through Cincinnati and have a little bit of a better run that way. Would probably have an east-west run if he did that, but he's going to have to withhold to drop a token to secure the run. That run is probably secure. I don't know that people are going to have enough tokens to token him out of Cincinnati, or really the inclination to waste them there to do that. So maybe he's going to be able to get an east-west run for himself. He's running for a pretty miserable 370, and he full pays. B&O, last company to operate. Somehow I missed that he did not have a permanent train in this company. Actually, the Erie bought a train over. I missed that. So he's going to be out of pocketing a expensive train for the B&O. This is going to hurt his net worth even further. He's a distant last place, and I do not think that this is going to be enough to improve his position in the game, but it will certainly extend the game if it hadn't been already. So he actually blocks himself out of Chicago with this upgrade. I believe there was a 45 or a 46 available to him, which he could have laid. They both are available, so I'm amazed that we don't see him laying that. Would that not have helped him? Yeah, he could have laid track that would have cut right across here into Chicago. So I'm surprised that we don't see that. Maybe just looking to deny that token to anybody and then look towards the South Chicago. It's going to take him a lot more work to get there than it would have to the north. I'm not entirely clear why we made that decision. Issuing shares, and he out of pockets a 6. So we'll be running 3 permanent trains. The Erie is he is max invested in it, but unfortunately for him, MJ Mill is the next highest investor and will be reaping the rewards of his decision to optimize the Erie. Ick continues to pull ahead of the other players, and he is passing any track, doesn't have cash for it, probably just going to be paying out for the rest of the game. GT, he is upgrading his home token and also potentially looking to get into wheeling. A little bit confused about that. Erie running 2 permanent trains as previously noted. He's issuing share, does have token money now. Does he look to, well, he doesn't need a token in Chicago and is actually out of tokens, so probably just getting track money. Upgrading Detroit, and does he have 2 east-west runs? He has one up north, and unfortunately because of the token in Dayton, doesn't have one down south. Doesn't look like it's going to be easy for him to get a second permanent east-west run, but this does improve his run. So he's going to be running for 670, pretty good. And he full pays. NYC, is he able to get into Cincinnati finally? Looks like it. And he will have an east-west run now. It's a pretty monstrous run, 420 with just one train. So good news for him, but not going to be enough to bring him into the game. Cino's first run, and he upgrades wheeling. We'll have a better east-west run as long as he drops a token by doing this. So he's going to token Indianapolis, and he's running for 370. That run is not enough to justify starting this company, I don't think. Whose run is he cutting with a token in Indianapolis? Obviously not the Ick. Doesn't really hurt anyone, I don't think. The Erie wasn't using that track. Um, yeah, I'm not sure why the token was important for him. Bino running a single train, does have an east-west run, and pays out for 350. So bank will break in the next operating round. MJ Mill is leading by $1,000 and probably in no danger in this game. We'll move very quickly through this stock round. JR is selling out of the B&O and buying an Erie. Erie running two permanent trains. That is the probably best share to buy. So well played to him. Still at a cert limit. MJ Mill may look to optimize his portfolio a little bit. The B&O is running for a little bit less than the C&O and also has less stock appreciation available to it. So probably would sell that share. He's going to pass, just I guess confident in his lead. Matt Fedor has 3 shares to buy and will pick up the last Ick. So that's surprising from NJ Mill, right? He, I guess he was share locked in the Ick, so couldn't even pick that up. But still, there are better shares than what he is sitting on, even the NYC with 2 permanent trains. Count von Blucher, 3 shares to buy. He's going to pick up the last NYC. JR is passing. MJ also passing. Matt Fedor buys a C&O. Count von Blucher maxes out on the C&O now, unable to clear his market. Matt Fedor buying his last share, and it will be another C&O. Count von Blucher buying a B&O. So both C&O and B&O will be falling back. All the other companies are floating up. Everybody passing, it looks like. And we will see the IC operating. He has not shown any interest in laying track, probably just resting on his laurels at this point. And he will, looks like full pay. GT, I don't know that he has much track to lay either. He has been tokened out of Indianapolis, but I don't know that that affected his runs. We can look at what his run used to be. So he wasn't running through there anyways. And he has a second east-west run, I believe, by heading into Wheeling instead of Dayton. So we'll see his revenue increase, I believe. Let's see if he is able to take advantage of that. He's going to upgrade Chicago one more time. And looks like he does have 2 east-west runs, so going to be running for 780. That's great news for him, but he is far enough behind. I don't think that changes the lead. Erie running 2 permanent trains. He is upgrading Toledo, just improving his run. And he will be paying for 700. Is the bank broken yet? Should be pretty soon. $1,000 left. NYC, he tokens in Cincinnati. That doesn't really change anything, I don't believe. And also going to be laying, where was his second tile lay? H6. Not entirely sure where he's heading there. Maybe hoping to get into Chicago. The token on Cincinnati, I'll take a second evaluation of this, actually does help him improve his runs. He was previously just running from the single token in Erie. So important for him to lead token somewhere. Just the Cincinnati was the best option for him. He's going to be running for 560. He's actually running for less than he did in the last operating round somehow. He must have been tokened out somewhere. C&O running his single permanent train. And looks like he will be hoping to get into Chicago, but not going to be able to get there this round. This could be prevented, I think, by the NYC player. He actually doesn't have the ability to get into Chicago right now, so would have to get some creative upgrades. We'll see if C&O is able to secure that token. Running for 380 and paying out. B&O now, no money for tokens. We'll have to withhold to do anything useful other than run his train. And he's going to full pay. Last operating round, and just taking a look at the spreadsheet, MJ Mill is now $900 behind or ahead, so probably running for a little bit less than the other players. It looks like he is, but the other players are so far behind, it's not going to change the game state. Probably just full paying here. GT passing, and looks like he's also probably full paying, running for 800. Very nice for him. Erie, he is looking to bypass Terre Haute and also get into Chicago, but he's not going to have the track points to do it. NYC, he has been given the opportunity to get into Chicago by the Erie's track points, and that will hurt the C&O. Why was Erie motivated to do that? He's not in contention for the win. He's in last place, and he is an investor in the C&O. He actually has more shares in the C&O than the NYC. So I guess he was maybe trying to hope to open the C&O up for that, but because of operating order, NYC should be able to drop a token there and prevent it, which is exactly what happens. So he's going to be paying out for 660, ends up having pretty good runs in the NYC, but it took him a long, long time to get there. And as a result, he's going to be coming in probably third place. C&O, just upgrading Columbus for a few extra bucks. And running for 390, paying it out. Last operation in the game, Matt Fedor. Doesn't really matter what he decides to do. He's just going to full pay. And we see that MJ Mill takes it by 900 bucks, closely followed by JR, Count von Blucher, and Matt Fedor. So interestingly, JR performs much better than I anticipated, and actually is able to come in second place. I thought he was going to be in last place. Matt Fedor, as a result of having to withhold so many times on the B&O, I think, and shuffling trains into the Erie, is going to come in last place. I don't think it was the wrong decision to start the Erie. It just didn't really play out the way he intended. I do think it was the wrong decision to start the C&O, but Count von Blucher is able to come in third rather than fourth despite that. Why was NYC player able to come in second? What did he invest in? So the GT was running really hot, and he was a minority investor there, and I guess he had 2 shares in the IC. So by piggybacking on the GT mostly, I think he was able to come in second. I think he comes in second in this game, not as a result of his own play, but because of the decisions by Matt Fedor and Count von Blucher to start second companies. I think they would have both finished ahead of him had they not done that. So just an interesting thought that starting a second company can, in 1846, really be a detriment to your chances of winning. But regardless, well played to MJ Mill. He was able to run away with this game. And Track Talk will be back with additional commentary in the near future. Thanks for listening.